So, coming up on a month since I've been using Firebase and Angular Fire to work with 28 chains, and I'm almost done with the MVP of 28 chains. So, about that time, I wanted to look up, I want to research Firebase gotchas, things I wish I would have known before I started Firebase, things, and it's going forth to this day, stuff I wanted to make changes to 28 chains and its Firebase database before I released it to more people. One of these articles, barnabas.tumblr.com. I'll put the link in the description below. Let's start here. I learned about Firebase through the AngularJS grapevine due to their AngularJS adapter Angular Fire. This is the route I took also. Angular Fire makes it really easy to use to have Angular and Firebase work with each other. Highly recommended, and it's official from the people who made Firebase also, so check it out. Our thing about making an app like this is a real-time synchronization. True, it can be hard. Firebase makes it shockingly easy, as in I was shocked at how simple it really was once I got out of the way. Correct. Yeah, the first time you see Google Docs and seeing multiple people work on one document, you can do that with Angular. Excuse me, you can do that with Firebase and Angular Fire. It's really amazing how there's three-way data binding between the DOM, Angular, and Firebase. Changes you make in one affect the other. So the last time I felt something this magical is last time I felt like something this magical was drop-in easy was when I fully wrapped my head around AngularJS binding. That is really cool. That is really correct. The amazement you feel when you do three-way data binding, and it can take less than 3 minutes to set up. If you look at the official getting setup guide, it's that simple. In a similar way, which was once TS Interprone became brilliantly simple, blah blah blah. And then he goes into the gotchas. So this article was written 2 years ago, June 29, 2013. It is March 6, 2016. So let's see if these gotchas are still true. Keep in mind, I've only really had 1 full month with Firebase. If I try to save an empty object or an object with some null properties, Firebase won't do a darn thing, but it won't complain either. I've never experienced this before. I've never saved something with null, or even then it's been an empty string. I haven't checked too much what are the equivalencies of each in Firebase, so yeah, this is something to be aware of. There are 2 separate data structures, references and queries. Do not mix them up. Yeah. That's I think there are references. I think Firebase calls it those snapshots. Then there are queries. Yeah. This was written June 29, 2013. Now it's 2016, and Firebase also has, I guess that's what he means by references. Firebase also has, you can get arrays from Firebase, but they're only snapshots. So you can only get the data, but you can't modify them. You can't modify the array, and the array doesn't automatically modify Firebase. If you want to create a thing, just make a URL and write to it. I mistakenly thought that in order to write a child to games to /games path, for example, I'd first have to create the parent games element. Then when writing to the children, I'd have to check to see if game exists. This ain't no database, just right. This is true. This is one of the crazy things about Firebase. You don't even, before you put things into the database, you don't even need to type out the model. You don't need to figure out the model, and then with like Rails or Django, scaffold out the database structure based on the model. You can just start writing things to and from the database immediately. And if your model changes, then it's not like you're breaking the schema. You can just keep can just keep adding things to new objects. You can keep adding properties that you did not think you would have to add before. There's a method called push that creates a new element with a random ID because arrays don't exactly map to URLs. If you want to get the name of the element you created, use name. Yeah, that's true. Firebase is one of those things where I recommend doing as much documentation as you can before building, and as you're building, keep reading the documentation. Firebase is really powerful. The fact that Firebase is so powerful, and it makes it so easy to prototype and get apps running, get your apps database running. You know, it gives you some free time to keep reading, and if you keep reading as you're building, you'll discover so many great things about Firebase. When you create the Angular Fire object to set up your scope elements, it returns a promise you can use to get some setup going. However, you can't write back to Firebase inside this by modifying your newly bound objects because its callback is not really in a digest loop, and yet apply will blow up. Workaround. $sign timeout. Suggestion to Firebase team: return a reference to the newly bound scope variable, or at least a Firebase ref object as callback argument. If I'm thinking of what he's thinking about, I think there might actually be a $sign timeout. So let me Firebase documentation. Go to developer docs, web, and it's in the guide. I think it's a going forward in the deploying your app, posting a whitelist. Nope. It's in the section saying, oh, what you can do going forward. Maybe it's in the quick start option. Or maybe it's in the Angular Fires section. Angular Fire, the guide, and beyond Angular Fire. And there we go. I think this is what he was talking about. Yeah, you are able to wrap events in the $sign timeout to wrap all server notifications in $timeout to ensure Angular compiler is notified of changes. That has actually been implemented. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool to see a blog suggest something and it gets implemented. So yeah, this is overall my experience. So I'm reading this guy's blog post. Overall, my experience has been very positive, and I'm thrilled with the development. Yeah, I generally agree with what these guys' gotchas are, and yeah, they fixed the last. They actually took the suggestion. His last suggestion has been implemented. So yeah, once again, this guy's arlenbis.tumblr.com. I'll put the link in the description below. Once again, here are some gotchas with Firebase. Here are my thoughts on this guy's gotchas, and yeah, Firebase is awesome. I recommend it.